going on, everybody? We are on our way to the Chatuchak weekend market to see if we can find some pretty sick vintage clothing. And I know that there's a huge section of vintage clothing there, and there's also that is it the Bangsu Junction, which is like kind of a mall in that area, which also has a lot of vintage clothes and repurposed clothes where people take multiple clothing pieces, cut them and stitch them together and so on. And I'm just really looking for that kind of 70s and 80s vintage vibe right now. This video is going to contain a lot of B-roll footage because I want you to kind of get an idea of the types of things that you can expect to find at this market in the vintage section. But just keep in mind, I'm not going to be scrolling through all the racks, so if you really want to know what they have, you're just going to come out and have to look for yourself. But there is definitely a large variety of stuff. Finding vintage clothing in Bangkok, especially stuff like AC/DC and stuff like that, you know, finding those types of clothing in Bangkok is kind of difficult. So if you come to this market to specifically look for vintage clothing, your best option is right when you get off of the train at Mochit. You walk up to the market, and as soon as you walk in that side of the market, the first couple rows of that covered area is going to be pretty much all vintage and secondhand clothing. Fun. Oh, Dondi. Good. Yeah, so the biggest challenge for me every time I come here is I find stuff that I want and it's always too small. So we're gonna browse around for a couple hours and see if we can find anything. Most of the stuff here is way too small for me, but keep looking. Kind of what I'm looking for today would be 70s and 80s rock band kind of attire or anything that just kind of fits that era. But as you make your way deeper into the market, you're gonna notice that a lot of the stuff kind of turns into the typical, you know, street market, repetitive type of stuff that you'd normally see at any market. So that's why we are making our way over to this mall here now, because I know that there's a lot of secondhand and vintage clothing and also one-off custom clothing in there. So hopefully I can put together an outfit that I would like. I'm gonna do my research and try to find other good vintage shopping places in Bangkok, because this is the only place that I've ever gone to when I'm looking for that specific thing. But I've always known that the prices here are a little bit questionable, but sometimes you can find good stuff here. So I'm gonna see if I can find some better places where maybe prices are more reasonable and just not as popular of places, so you know, just less foot traffic. Ooh, I like this. Well, I found a super sick pair of pants. Pretty excited about that. There was only 2 shirts in the entire market that I had to have, and unfortunately they were a size too small, too tight. So I'm gonna continue on our venture to find, you know, some 70s and 80s vintage attire, but I feel like there could potentially be a storm coming in. So we're just gonna leave here a little early and try and get back to the house, and hopefully a nicer day will be coming up here soon. So keep in mind that most of the vintage style clothing at the Chatuchak market was bought at one of the other local second-hand and vintage flea markets and is being resold at the Chatuchak weekend market. The reason for this is the Chatuchak market is super touristy. Lots of people coming here that have disposable money, and you can get a higher price for the goods at that market, and the other markets are just, you know, located in not quite as popular areas of town, and just not touristy type of flea markets. They're more so filled mostly with people that are trying to flip the clothing online and at places like Chatuchak and stuff like that. So if you want a really good bargain, I would suggest sourcing out these other flea markets, which I'm going to be doing in the next couple of days, and we'll provide information on some of these markets and locations. But the Chatuchak market still does have some good deals. You just gotta look. There is some valuable stuff there that people don't quite price right, and you know, you can get lucky here and there. I got a sick pair of pants for like $3, and so yeah, you just gotta go and look. Stay tuned in the next couple of weeks as I source out a couple of these flea markets that are not touristy locations. See if you can get just a heck of a bargain there, especially if you buy in bulk. I'm kind of curious. And I also plan on going to the Riverside Market They got like this big Ferris wheel, and yeah, it's supposed to be a pretty decent sized place. And so I'm gonna go check that out, and so many more things to come. We plan to be heading south for a while down to the beach, so I'm gonna cover that in that local area and just whatever comes my way. So I will catch you next time. See you then.